Nebraska Preps postgame with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.
That's the voice we love to hear. That means I get another week with my main man, Jacob Padilla. Don't mind my voice. I don't know what's going on. We've had a lot of weather changes. We have been outside in the rain trying to prep for this time of the year, which is playoffs. So that makes it fun, my man, JP. What's up, buddy?
I hope we get all the rain out of the way today, so kind of a nice, clean weekend for some football.
Are you old enough to remember the Eurythmics, Annie Lennox?
No.
All right, well, here comes the rain again. I just had to throw that in, but it's not funny because Jacob is like half my age. But anyway, I say all that to say he's really good at what he does, so that's really all I care about. And he keeps me young. All this gray in my beard, you make it a lot easier. How was the week, man? I mean, you're double dipping. Your volleyball team's hot down at the old state school. Really getting it in gear. Got a big one tonight against Wisconsin.
Yeah.
They sent a couple of messages here in the last couple of weeks to the rest of the Big Ten that I think they've kind of got their substitution pattern in their lineup figured out.
Yep. Still one or two things I think that they need to kind of address and iron out, but they're playing at a really high level right now. And, yeah, it's kind of crazy week. I've got basically every beat that I cover going on all at the same time this week. I've got tonight, got the men's basketball exhibition, going to head over for at least a little bit of that.
Are you gonna be a Bobcat or are you going to be impartial?
I'm impartial. There's
Peru State does wear Carolina blue. It's at least good for me. It's not as good for you as it is for me, I'm sure.
Yeah. But, yeah, so it would be fun just to see those guys get out there for the first time, watch the first half or whatever, then head over to volleyball. And we got Nebraska, Wisconsin, and then we got football this weekend. We got playoff football on Friday. Heck, postseason volleyball has started, but I can't even get to that because of everything else going on. So, yeah, busy time, but excited to have all this stuff to cover this week.
When you saw the wild card, the PowerPoint pairings, any matchups were you thinking, oh, gosh, that's interesting. I didn't kind of see that falling that way, or ones that grabbed your attention like, man, if you would have done it just a little bit different in the regular season?
Yeah, I honestly don't pay a ton of attention to the points during the regular season because I just like that's a lot of math, a lot of thinking that I really don't need to do. I just kind of wait until everything falls out and then take a look at what the final standings are. But definitely some interesting matchups in kind of the middle of Class A and some good ones in B as well.
Yeah, so when you're taking a look at competitiveness, let's start with last week, kind of recapping how it ended. A couple of surprising scores. One game in which you're very well versed in because you saw it firsthand. I think the shocker of the week was Lincoln Southeast getting obliterated. Or excuse me, not Lincoln Southeast, Lincoln East getting obliterated in their final game, 52-7. Message sent?
Yeah, and even that 7 was on the final play of the game on a play that pretty blatant OPI there. Just two-hand shove in the back on the defensive back to be able to catch that touchdown. So the rest were like, we'll let it go. We didn't see anything. So even that, they just did not get anything going until the very end of the game. No explosive plays until the last drive or two for a team that lives on explosive plays. And Prep just dominated the trenches. They're playing at a really high level right now, and they lost Sharmar Brown on the first drive of the game. Took 4 carries, went down, hurt his ankle. Hopefully he'll be all right for this week. But Jack Stessman stepped in and ran for almost 200 yards.
Lincoln East's inability to tackle.
Yeah.
Reared its ugly head.
Yeah, ran through a few different defenders a number of times. And on the other side, 1, Noah Walters didn't have a ton of time to throw. 2, Prep did a great job of covering the screens and making short completions stay for short gains. And then 3, the receivers have been so good all season. They had a number of drops, uncharacteristic. So it was just a complete domination by Prep in all phases of the game. They had a blocked punt that they scooped up and returned for a touchdown. A QB hit led to an interception off a tip. So they just had all kinds of things going their way, and Prep has to be feeling pretty good about where they are heading in the postseason as long as Brown is healthy.
Less impressed by kind of Burke's offensive ineptness or more impressed by Koziel and company and kind of that offense finding a way to really stymie Burke and a pretty convincing win without their best player?
Yeah.
Engage Stenger.
Yeah, and I think we feel pretty good about that defense and what they've kind of evolved into throughout the season. So holding them to basically 7 points until right at the end. They got a late touchdown or a late score there. But, yeah, that was impressive. They're doing what they need to do. Koziel,
he's obviously a fantastic athlete. You don't go to Vandy and commit as a junior and not be very good at your craft. So we know he's a good athlete.
Yeah. So he stepped in there and has done his job. And obviously we know they've got a lot of skill guys for him to get the ball to. Christian Nash, I think, has stepped up, continued to play well in the ground game over the second half of the season after we weren't quite sure early on if about their ability to establish that, just based on a couple of the early games. So, yeah, Millard South is, I guess we'll see kind of how long this Stenger injury lasts. But even without him, you feel like they've got a chance to stay in every game because the
some
athletes
close to
on
that
defense.
program felt like he could have gone.
Yeah.
Last week if he had to. But the thing about hamstrings is you just never
know. You get out there and something could happen. Yeah, exactly right.
Are you concerned at all for Burke offensively, who have shown some real lulls in terms of moving the ball against quality opponents? They don't have a win against a team with a winning record.
Well, pretty good matchup in the first round there with Lincoln Southeast, who has had
something's
some similar.
Got to give, right?
Yeah.
Because Lincoln Southeast only has the win over Grand Island, which is the only team on their win-loss record column with a winning record.
Yeah, so that is definitely one of the more intriguing, I think, first round. Obviously,
it's intriguing for me because we get the winner.
Yeah, very much so. But so yeah, it's one of those teams is gonna have to figure out something on offense, be able to consistently play well in at least one phase of the game. But they've got athletes on both sides of the ball for both those teams. It's just how well can the respective units play together, 1 through 11 out there on the field.
Yeah, so, there wasn't a ton of movement, obviously, in Class A. You obviously had the coin flip. They're
almost had Prep East round 2, but I like the way that it shook out the other way because now we get Gretna and Lincoln East facing off.
Yeah, which should be highly entertaining. But if you're Lincoln East, little pause for concern. Defensively, you've been a little leaky. And I'm going to say this because I think it's relative to the expectation level. Of the teams with one loss or less, I think Gretna, for whatever the reason, still has the most critics. I look at them is the most dangerous of the good teams. People will say, yeah, Prep's a sleeper, this, that, and the other. Gretna had a very, very good Elkhorn Southeast team on the ropes. One play here, they score on that drive to go up 28, and it may be a wrap. It may be 9-0 Gretna. I think they're better, much better than some of their critics and but guys say. Yeah,
and that being said, they also end the year on a 27-20 win against Papillion La Vista. And Papia's been pretty scrappy in some of the games this year. Obviously, you experienced that. A few other, they've had some close losses against some good teams. But they've also been handled by some others. Obviously, the Prep win at week 2 kind of stands out, and a couple others. So they're a tough team to figure out. But 27-20, Gretna wins. And I think the thing about Gretna is they haven't quite been as explosive as you would think they could be with a guy like Flores as a quarterback. You just kind of look at the overall offensive numbers and the point totals and things like that, and you kind of feel like, they could have done some of the things that East has done, just in terms of having that level of a quarterback and some good skill guys around him. So they're a tough team to figure out, but that'll be a heck of a good game in the first round. And where are you setting the over-under on passing yardage?
Well, I'm going to put it at about 780. No, I'm serious.
Where are you setting the over-under on rushing yardage?
Man, I kind of like Huber. He's kind of sneaky good. How about 140?
Ooh, I'm taking the under on that.
Really?
I don't think I don't know that
70 apiece?
I don't know that they're getting much help from East on that side of the ball. So
that's a good point.
yeah.
That's a really good point if you're looking at it.
And if he gets an early touchdown or two, then how much is Gretna going to stay with the run game? So that'll be a fun one for sure. I think for Hale Varsity, Greg Smith's going to be on the scene for that one.
Oh, I always love the plug, right? Hale Varsity is big with what we do. Why not? Go ahead then, Greg Smith. I'll see you Saturday for the Purdue game. So when you're kind of looking at the matchups, do you like the fact that North Platte has to turn right around and play Columbus again?
Yeah, that was a 38-28 win for Columbus.
Closer than I thought,
season.
though. We talked to Coach Rice on Friday. They've been impressive kind of handling what they do.
And no Genitone in that one, I believe. You know what the story is there?
I don't actually.
Okay. So
they played it pretty close to the vest. So
that'll be.
Listen. I don't speculate.
Yeah, that'll be a key in that game because again they gave up 38 points without him. And Brock Robley still ran for 165 yards, but defensively, they're going to need Genitone against Columbus to kind of get that one back here in the postseason. So
it's just
this one will be at North Platte, so they'll get to host that one. And again, we'll see what happens with Genitone.
I know you can make the case that Chadron and North Platte have the two greatest advantages of any teams in the playoffs, and I think Chadron's a 4 seed in their class, so they probably, if seeds hold, could get 2 home games in North Platte. Very dangerous to travel. I know, at West Side or North or any of my other stops, I didn't like going to Lincoln, let alone heading out to North Platte. That community is all in on what that team has been able to do.
Yeah, and so without Genitone, Columbus ran for 341 yards at 7.5 yards a pop, 4 touchdowns. And they also had a passing touchdown. North Platte 0 for 2 passing, and both passes were intercepted. So
keep it on the ground.
Yes. But they're going to need Brody Mickey, kind of a dual threat quarterback there. Liam Blazer carrying the load. So and then Ernest Hausman as a receiving threat. So they're going to need.
It was weird.
Genitone.
He never flashed one time. I watched the Bellevue West Columbus game. It was interesting how he inexplicably didn't flash in the 62-0 final.
Yeah, and I haven't seen them yet this year, so I haven't quite seen how they've tried to use him. We've seen obviously some other very talented players that teams have struggled to get involved consistently, whether it be Jake Applegate. I think Devin Jackson is getting like 1 or 2 touches a game on offense for Berg.
I'm telling you, that Berg Southeast game, again, for multiple reasons. Obviously, if we get past Papio South, we get the winner. But 2 teams, I don't feel like I have a good handle on what they're capable of.
Yep.
So when you're taking a look at like the bottom half, not necessarily the bottom half of that bracket because our listeners may not be looking at it real time, is there anything that kind of catches your eye in terms of favorable matchups where that kind of has your attention? Everybody kind of likes Prep as a sleeper. I keep hearing that. I don't know how much a team that's won as many games in a row as they have and started to really hit their stride can be a sleeper. But, hey, I mean, if you're not obviously Millard South or Bellevue West, and I guess that makes you a sleeper.
Yeah, I think you look at those top 6, and you feel pretty good about that being a separate tier from kind of 7 through the rest there, with kind of some of the issues we talked about with some of those mid-tier teams.
Is there a lower seed from 9 on down that you could see being a problem?
We got
so that would be that's
Lincoln East, obviously. If that was a wake-up call, if they're going to bring a little bit more physicality, obviously with that passing game, you're never out of a game.
You've got Columbus as a 9, you've got Southeast as a 10. Your 11 is tucked all the way down on the other half in Grand Island, who's got Prep.
Yep.
Your 12 is Lincoln East. Your 13 is Kearney. Your 16 is North. Your 15 is Papiola Vista South, and your 14 is Papiola Vista. Is there a team 9 or down that has your attention at all?
Like I said, I think it's definitely East, just in terms of looking at kind of the upside of those teams, because I think a lot of those teams, even if they play at a high level to what they're capable of.
Could you see Grand Island upsetting Prep?
I don't think so. The way they're playing, I went out and watched you guys play Grand Island, and Kite and Fife is honestly maybe the most versatile player in the state. Definitely up there, certainly in Class A.
They threw him a smokescreen with a 15-yard head start. They got him in trips. He was 15 yards off the ball. He got a running start. They threw him the ball behind the line of scrimmage, and he's a load.
They do that about once a game, too. You look at kind of his weekly box scores. He's got a handful of receiving yards. Obviously, their leading rusher, complete a few passes here. Plays defense as well, racks up the tackles. So there aren't many players doing more for their team than Kite and Fife right now, especially with Gage Stenger on the sidelines. So I just don't know that they've got enough there to be able to, because man, Prep's defense has been awesome this year. They've been so good. So
they have definitely been lights out.
I think Grand Island will compete. They'll make that game tough early on, but I just don't know if they'll be able to hang in it, especially if Prep brings kind of the same level of energy that they had last week. Just the way they dominated in the trenches and kind of set that tone from the jump. So you look at like if Kearney, if Grand Island, if even Columbus, these teams kind of play up to their A game or so. I just don't know if that level is high enough to knock off the higher seeds unless something happens and they're playing their C minus D game. Whereas I think East, just because of that explosive potential, can jump up and have more of an outlier, I guess, a above their level type of performance.
That would be the Noah Walters show. I mean,
yeah,
he would have to carry those guys because defensively they have been a little leaky.
Yep, so
a little leaky. Okay, so sir, I know you said Southeast Burke is interesting. Is that the one that you think is the best matchup? Usually 7-10s are. I mean, 8-9 is a repeat because 8-9, 7-10 obviously historically are the most balanced, but that doesn't necessarily mean that the matchups shake out that way.
Yeah, I've got the Burke Southeast, the North Platte Columbus, just kind of the rematch factor of it, and it was a competitive game, but again, we'll see. Don't know about Genetone. And then Gretna Lincoln East as probably kind of the three most interesting, I think, first round matchups, just in terms of wouldn't be surprised to see either side win there.
Did you allow yourself to go to the second round, which could be nothing short of fantastic?
I have not really got there that yet. I figured, but
I mean, you could potentially get a Millard South if seeds hold. You'd get a Millard South North Platte. You'd get a Gretna Elkhorn South
rematch.
You'd get a Bellevue West Creighton Prep.
Another rematch. That one was competitive as well.
And you'd get a Burke West Side. I mean, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. If seeds hold.
Yeah. Again, with kind of the number we were talking about, I feel like there's 6 really good teams with a few others that have a chance to kind of jump up in there. That definitely sets the stage for a really good second round and beyond. And we've already seen a few of those matchups, but I really do like the way that this bracket is shaken out.
I know statistically you spent a good chunk of time putting together stats for some class leaders. When you were composing these numbers and you're kind of looking at them, what stuck out to you?
Yeah, I think nobody's surprised to see Noah Walters at the top of the passing chart there. Almost 67% completion, 328 yards a game, 39 touchdowns, and 4 interceptions. Pretty decent year.
Pretty good. Pretty good.
So he was far and away. There wasn't even anybody close. We talked about Flores had a really good year. He was number 2. Luke Johansson at Bellevue West, Carter Sintek at Fremont, and Nick Shinez from Papillion La Vista kind of round out the top 5 there. Rushing, Mr. L.J. Richardson, top of the chart.
Okay, so I just got to say this. I'm glad you brought him up. For as good a player as he is, do you scratch your head at week after week, he almost never comes up? He's an amazing high school football player.
And it's every week. It's
He's
150 plus. It's
every week. Pencil him in. 20 for 160 roughly, and it's like, oh, okay. Well, I guess we'll see BWS in the play. Like, he's way good. And
obviously, once we get to B, the numbers are silly there with some of those running backs, but just 153 carries for 1,537 yards and 27 touchdowns. It's 10 yards a carry, 170 yards a game.
Yeah, and the interesting thing is you pit it against some other guys in Dom Rizak, who's 158 for 1,168 yards. He got 17 touchdowns. He's only played 7 games. But you're looking, I mean, some of these guys that are running the football, just explosive, and it's like, L.J. Richardson, Dom Rizak, like these guys are really good.
Yep. Deshaun Porter at North, Micah Moore at Fremont.
Maybe
Sharmar
the
Brown
best.
Prep.
Porter may be the best kept secret going.
He's finished the season really strong too, and
he gave us problems from Omaha North. He's faster than he looks, but man, does he chunky. I've been watching this Burke North film and trying to get ready for, Southeast or Burke, depending on what happens. You always want to be prepared. You don't assume you win against Papio South, but he just kept flashing. I'm like, we don't even play North. Yeah. But you just kept seeing this guy for North break these long runs. You're thinking, this guy's pretty good.
Yeah. So, and we know they've had some pretty good ones come through there in that backfield.
They've had a few, right? the Sarbaughs, the Calvin Strongs, the Xander Grays, the Jordan Strongs. It's been a handful.
Yeah. And receiving, no surprise, Cooper Erickson, Noah Walter's favorite, 1 yard shy of 1,000 yards, which is incredible. 50 catches, 12 touchdowns, 111 yards a game, 20 yards a catch. He just had a fantastic season. Drew Sellon from Fremont, Caden Helms from Bellevue West, Keyshawn Williams from North.
How about Caden Helms last 3 or 4 weeks?
Man, the second half of the season, he turned Bellevue West over their last 5 games. They outscored their opponents 286-50, and they haven't played the toughest teams, but they still got to execute at a high level to be able to do that. That's 57 to 10 per game. I don't think
anybody's within 90 points scored of Bellevue West, and that includes Miller South.
Yeah,
when you look at total points scored. Yeah, I mean that offense has found a way to get it in gear, and I don't think it's any coincidence when they settled in at the quarterback spot, kind of figured out who they wanted to be. I think the Millard South loss was the best thing for that program going forward if they wanted to, get dialed in and focused again.
Yeah, and defensively, Vince Genatone leading the way in tackles. No surprise there, 13 a game. Mason Limbach from Fremont, who closed out the season with 22 tackles in a 42-41 overtime win against Lincoln Pius X. 22 tackles is absurd.
Yeah, he's pretty ridiculous.
So that's
his health definitely matters.
Yeah.
Cole Ballard, Elkhorn South, matters. Dom Rizak, health matters. I mean, Genatone, health matters. Gage Stinger, health matters. Yeah. You could maybe make the case for Sharmar Brown. I love Stessman. I like John Pargo, but
yeah, Stessman is a really good back and a really good complementary piece, but that was his first real big game, and we talked about kind of East's defensive issues. So I don't think we can assume that he's just going to slot in and run for $190 every game without Brown. I think you'd much rather have Brown back there than Stessman as kind of the change of pace, and then obviously the George Egan with the fullback traps. And I think that running game is really tough to deal with when you're at full strength. So
yeah, real quick, let's jump over to B just because it's going to be highly, highly competitive. Did the seeding surprise you?
No, we talked about just kind of the wild card points there with Platt Smith and kind of the teams that Aurora had played.
By the way, here comes Aurora.
Yeah, it's exactly what they did last year. It's kind of slow start. Wasn't really sure what they were going to be, and then man, did they turn it on! And 50-14 win over a pretty solid Seward team to close out the season to send a message that, hey, we're ready for the postseason.
So for you, I want to go to 8-9 real quick with GI Northwest Waverly. And then the 7-10, which I think is tough in Scottsbluff and Beatrice. We like Beatrice, though, don't we?
Yeah, and they had a rough last few weeks there, and
schedule got real.
Yeah, and closed out with the 48-34 win over Crete, so you can feel good kind of heading into the postseason on a win. But Scottsbluff's been tough this year. That running game is no joke.
Place you don't want to travel.
That's the other part of it too.
I mean, it's a full 6 hours, all of it. If you're coming from if you're Scott or somebody, But and speaking of which, I'd circle that one. That Scott Norris game. You talk battle tested versus the health of Scott. How about that one for an opener for the defending Class B champs?
Yeah, Norris is a pretty darn good sub 500 team, I'd say. Finish at 4-5, but that's
haven't they played?
Exactly right. They've played basically every playoff team, every top 10 seed on their schedule this season, and they've been competitive some of those and close out the season 59-42 triple overtime loss against Waverly.
Yeah, that
is tough.
Hey, listen, if you're listening, that's a 6-11. Scott is a 6 seed in Class B. That just lets you know.
And they've had so many issues this year.
The depth of Class B.
Yeah. They've had so many injury issues. They never quite got it clicking offensively between kind of the offensive line, the quarterback, guys coming in and out of the backfield. It has definitely not been a typical Scott year, but I mean, postseason comes around, you figure that's a time when they kind of played their best football.
How'd you like to be Plattsmouth and be a 3?
Yeah, so, man, I think Bennington definitely, they've been far and away the best team in Class B this season. They've earned that number 1 seed, and that if seeds hold, that could make for a spectacular semifinal on the other side of the bracket.
Yeah, you could be taking out Aurora and Plattsmouth.
Yeah.
Right? And you look at Bennington, I mean, McCook, and then the winner of Northwestern Waverly, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't really scare you. I don't see much at the top half that really derails Bennington. Not at all. Not even if I kind of squint and stretch it.
Yeah. I honestly, that second round matchup might be tougher than their third if
with the winner of Waverly and GI Northwest.
Yeah, and because I was there at Waverly Elkhorn, and Elkhorn somehow pulled that out at the very end, and that was without Cole Murray.
Yeah, and I'm kind of missing that. Is that the safety difference?
What? Or that was a 14-13 90-yard touchdown late, and they went for 2. So that I think that'll be a pretty scrappy game, but beyond that, yeah, I think you're looking at Elkhorn is the 4 seed there, and we talked about they've got championship. Some of those guys have some championship experience, but yeah, I think you got to feel good. Like we talked about the leaders in Class A. You look at passing leader, Bennington; rushing leader, Bennington; receiving leader, Bennington. So you got the most productive quarterback, running back, and receiver in your class. You're probably a pretty good offense.
Yeah, and I know you're just talking about bulk and volume of weapons, the running back race was extremely interesting because, as we talked about last week, the stats are so comparable.
Yeah, and Mostic kind of pulled ahead at the end there with another huge game. He ran for 254 and 3 scores last week. So Mostic finished with 234 carries for 2,230 yards and 33 touchdowns. It's 248 yards a game, 9.5 yards a carry, which is absurd. Christian Meneses, 233 carries for 2,017 yards and 30 touchdowns, 224 a game, 8.7 yards a carry. So
eerie.
And, man, we talked about those senior backs. Sebastian Boyle at Scottsbluff, he's a guy that we're going to be talking about next year for sure.
Yeah, he's just a junior, right?
He's had a monster year. Carlos Collazo there.
Found a way to keep them in it. He's by far and away the most consistent piece to that offense.
And then Rashad Madden, rounding out the top 5 in just 6 games played. He averaged 9.6 yards a carry and almost 200 yards a game. And, again, he missed a few games. So we talked about him last week setting the Class B record, but I just feel bad that he wasn't able to kind of be a bigger, be in the spotlight a little bit more than he was, just because of the way Ralston's seasons have gone. The last few years have always been there, but he is a special player for sure.
Do you have a dark horse in B?
I don't. Just because
three horse race in your opinion with Bennington, Plattsmouth, and Aurora.
I think so. Yes. I just Bennington is so complete, and we've seen what Aurora can do and what they've been doing recently. And Plasmith,
we'll talk to Cam about Bennington on Friday. He's so enthusiastic and energetic and creative. You're right, kind of one of those young whippersnappers. It's easy to see why Bennington plays the way that they do.
Yeah, and Elkhorn, again, the 4 seed at 8-1, good 33-13 win against Scott to close out the regular season. I think they're a really good football team. I just don't know if they've got as much top-end talent as any of those top 3 teams.
Let me ask you something, because I can pull myself out of the equation in terms of objectivity. I've seen a lot of forecasts, talked to a lot of people that cover this deal. Most people assume an A, Millard South, Bellevue West showdown. Is it possible for a 2 seed, an undefeated 2 seed, to be a dark horse?
I think so. And
you've seen both Bellevue West and Westside.
And I think part of it is because you didn't get to have that other. We've seen the Bellevue West against Millard South. We've seen kind of where they stack up and where they needed to improve, and you feel like they did get better down the stretch. Westside, you guys took care of business. You had your tougher games early on as opposed to late. So when you close out,
it's weird, right? Because Creighton Prep was never in that game.
Yeah.
Right? Like, at no point were you like, oh, okay, Westside feels threatened.
And that's the thing. Like, your best win comes right out the gates, right at the start of the season. So when that happens and you close out the season with a forfeit and a couple of games against kind of the bottom tier teams, you don't get talked about as much. But we've seen kind of some of the changes you guys have made throughout the season. You're probably healthier now than you have been at any point the entire season. So there's no doubt that the Westside is going to have a lot to say about who ends up in that state title game.
Yeah, going to be really interesting because that second round matchup,
man, the 2-3 in both A and B. Whew. Man, that's going to be some tough choices.
One at a time. Yeah. I had to get a neutral third party's opinion, man. That's a heck of a show, man. We try to give you the full gamut. The buffet is huge. It is all you can eat when I'm with my man, Jacob Padilla. This is the Nebraska Preps postgame. We'll be back next week. We'll be previewing round 2. What kind of mood will Coach Benning be in? Will we have gotten past the Papio South Titans? See, that's the cool thing about you. You don't have any real skin in the game. You just get to be a good observer that takes a ton of good stats and knows a lot of people. Not a bad way to be.
Hey, good luck tackling Devin Jones this week.
Yeah, I know. He's a handful. Believe me. All eyes on Devin Jones from the Papio South Titans. Back next week. That's Nebraska Preps Post Games. That's Jacob Padilla. I'm ODB. Don't you miss it.
Nebraska Preps Post Game with Damon Benning and Jacob Padilla.